Thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Maura Boudreau. I do programs and publicity for the West Hartford Public Library, and we're here today to talk with quite a few people about electrical.
Play that out loud. I wouldn't mind hearing it.
Electric vehicles. If you could mute yourself, that would be great, just to avoid any sort of distraction. Okay, so we're here today to talk about electric vehicles. And just a couple of housekeeping things. If you do have a question, you can either raise your hand, which is in the bottom of Zoom. If you hover towards the bottom, you'll see a couple of buttons that says chat, raise hand, and just click that button. Or you can also put it in the chat and we can ask those to the co-hosts or the hosts as we go along. And if you go to the top right-hand corner where it says view, you can do, I'm not sure what it defaults for you, but you can do side-by-side speaker, and that will be the current speaker who is speaking. So we're here today with Catherine Deviney, who is with the town. She's the town energy specialist, and she is the one who coordinated this. And this is great. I'm really excited about it. And I guess we'll get started.
Great. Thanks, Maura. So yes, good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Tonight's program is called Your Electric Vehicle Questions Answered. I am Catherine Deviney. Can you guys see me? Because I can't see myself. Yeah?
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
I'm Catherine Deviney, energy specialist with the town of West Hartford. So I'm a part-time employee in the plant and facilities department for about 10 years now. And I work both on the town side and with West Hartford Public Schools. I also work with the town's Clean Energy Commission, which is a group of volunteer residents, some of whom are going to speak tonight, who are committed to working with the town and the broader community to push West Hartford's towards a cleaner and greener future. As a follow-on to National Drive Electric Week, which was last week, the Clean Energy Commission decided to partner with Maura and West Hartford Public Libraries to host this Q&A session about electric vehicles. Just as a little background, the State Department of Energy and the Environment, that's Connecticut DEEP, says that transportation accounts for 38% of the greenhouse gas emissions in Connecticut. The state has identified electrification of this sector as one of its key strategies to reduce emissions in the state. And this strategy is also included in West Hartford's new energy plan, which was written by the Clean Energy Commission and adopted by Town Council in June. Our energy plan also notes that in 2019, there were only 234 electric vehicles registered in West Hartford. Now, a more recent estimate from July 2021 puts that number at about 450 electric vehicles in West Hartford. Now, that's a really rapid increase. It's nearly doubled in 2 years, but it's still less than 1% of the 47,000 vehicles that are registered in our town. And I know that a lot of us would like to see that number go up. So there are about 30 of you on this call and almost 60 registered participants. So I hope maybe some join us. So I'm glad to see there's a lot of interest in this topic. So just a couple more details before we get started. As it said in the description, this is a non-technical question and answer session. So the intent is just to have an informal neighbor-to-neighbor discussion with some of our fellow residents who own electric vehicles and share their experiences. These folks are not experts on EVs. Well, some may be, but most are not. And so we're not going to be delving into anything deep on types of EV technology, battery storage, that kind of thing. We can provide some additional information and educational resources and links after the Zoom in an email to participants. We do have both what we call plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, PHEVs, and battery electric vehicles, BEVs, represented here tonight. And we are going to provide some information on incentives for purchasing EVs a bit later in the program. So that's all I wanted to say as an introduction. And with that, I'm going to introduce our first local West Hartford EV owner, who is Max. Let's see if we can get the screen to move.
Hi, everybody. Thanks, Catherine.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm here to talk about my car. So there's my car. I'm Max Dubison. I'm on the town's Clean Energy Commission. When did I move to West Hartford? 2013. And I live on Ballard Drive, so about a mile or so from the center. I've been actively wanting us to get into hybrid and electric vehicles as fast as possible, but for various reasons, we haven't. We had a hybrid Highlander. That was kind of our first foray into this, and it was a wonderful car, but I was always very disappointed by the miles per gallon because it's such a big vehicle, but we needed a third row. And so we're getting more and more third row options out there. So this year we decided to trade in and get a plug-in hybrid from Volvo. So this is the XC90 Recharge. The only sort of all-electric option of this size really is to go minivan, the Chrysler Pacifica, which I've heard is really nice, but we weren't ready for the minivan. So far it's been fantastic. Like I said, it's got the third row, so we've got the space we needed. With this one, you can charge it in a, level 1, just plug it right into your home outlet, or you can get an actual level 2 charger. Because it's only a 20-mile battery, 20-mile electric range, I just charge it off our home outlet. So we haven't had a charger installed at the house. We just plug it into the outlet that's in the driveway. And I found that 20-mile range gets us pretty much all of our driving around town on electric. So we took it on a 3-week road trip around the East Coast, and I'd say maybe 25 to 30 miles per gallon average over that entire 3 weeks. Obviously, when you've been on the highway for just a few minutes, you get more than 20 miles. So it's pretty much all gas. But when we're here in town, we're averaging about 55 to 60 miles per gallon over several weeks. And I think we've bought gas maybe once a month at most. So I've been super happy with it so far. And that's my daughter. She likes it too.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt. I think we'll move on. And next we have Christine.
Hi, I'm Christine Feely, and my husband Kevin and I live on West Point Terrace near Conard High, and we bought this Nissan Leaf, 2017 Nissan Leaf, secondhand in February of 2020. We bought it because the gas-powered car that we still have, is not energy efficient, and I wanted something that didn't burn gas going around running errands around town. It has a pretty good range. So we started out with just around town, but the range is 125 to 130 miles. So we have gone many places. We've gone to Litchfield, New Haven. We go down to the Glastonbury, East Hampton area frequently. I took a friend, picked up a friend at the airport. We've actually been quite a few places without getting there and getting back without needing to charge. And I really like it. I drive it absolutely whenever possible and look for every opportunity to stretch the number of miles that I go. So much so that in July, my grandson and I took an adventure. We were actually, the other family members had gone down on a Monday. I stayed with him because he had a little league game, and if his team had won, he would have stayed. It didn't, so I would have driven down in any event. But we went to Long Beach Island, New Jersey, which is about twice the distance of one full charge. So that was the adventure part of it, figuring out where we could charge. On that trip, our first charge was at the Stamford City Hall, and you may or may not know that a number of town and city halls around the state have free charging, including West Hartford. We've also charged at Torrington, We charge at a free charging place in East Hampton. And we checked out Glastonbury. I'm not sure the charging is free, but there is a charging station at the town hall. So when we went down in New Jersey, our second charge was at a rest stop in Montclair. So we did charge twice. Just a tidbit, EVgo stations have names and you probably can't read it very well, but we got Hermione in Montclair. We charge at home and we also charged, there was already an acceptable electric line in the garage of the house where we rent actually. So we charge there and that works out nicely. We go to the West Hartford free charging stations and we also charge at commercial charging stations. So there are options. The fast charging, because our car doesn't have a big range, we can charge the car fully from virtually nothing in about 30 minutes. So that works okay on the road. And someone just had a question. Let me see what it is.
Yeah, I think we're gonna,
Oh, keep that for later.
yeah, let's
Yeah.
keep the questions after. We'll introduce everyone and then we'll go back to these questions. That's a great question about how long does it take to charge. And we'll do the questions at the
Yeah.
end.
So that's my short story there.
Great. Okay, next we have Bernie.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Bernie Pelletier, and I have a 2017 Chevrolet Bolt, which I got in August of 17. I live up on Northcliffe Drive, almost in Bloomfield. And right now on my little short block, it's my car and a Prius Prime, which is a plug-in hybrid. And my goal is to convert my whole block there. Just a couple points about the car. I'm 6'3". I'm shrinking, but I'm still 6'3". But I've got one nice thing about this car is I have plenty of headroom. I have 2 inches before I hit the roof, which isn't the case in a lot of other cars. I took a picture of the one of the several screens that the car shows you how it's doing. And in weather like this, I get about 4.3 miles to every kilowatt hour. So if you want to translate that into, human terms, if you run a typical hair dryer, like my wife's hair dryer for an hour, that's a kilowatt hour. And with that, I get 4 miles of range on that. Assuming we spend about 22 cents a kilowatt hour, those 4 miles, it cost me a nickel a mile of electricity to go each mile. I will say, and I think this is true of all of these cars, when it really is cold out, the mileage does drop. So in good weather like this, I can get 240 miles of range. And really, really, really cold weather, I can get like 160, something like that, miles of range. So that's one thing to think about. You heard from Max, he charges on what's called level 1, which is just regular house current. Christine said her house has level 2, which is sort of like what an electric dryer runs on, 220 volt. And then there's the third level, and Christine had a picture of Hermione. That's a DC fast charge, direct current fast charge. If you're looking and you're going to be doing a lot of highway driving, you definitely want to get a DC fast charge. And so if you look at the bottom of the charge port on the picture on the left, thank you. Those two, that little combination there, that little sort of looks like a face, and then those 2 ports, they combined allow you to have a fast charge. If you don't have those 2 little ports at the bottom, then it's just going to do level 2 charging. I did put in a level 2 charger, which I bought from Chevrolet. You have a picture of it there. That's it. The next picture is my car charging up in my driveway. I get about 25 miles of range per hour of charging at the level 2. What Christine said, when you're on the road and you want to go to a DC fast charge, I can charge my car to 80% in about an hour. And we can talk about what that experience is like when we get to questions. So there is, and I want to be clear about this, and I don't want to dodge the issue. My car, which is 2017 Bolt, In fact, every subsequent Bolt has been recalled by Chevrolet because they have battery fires. I think there have been perhaps 10 of them so far, and that's not good. So I'm just going to acknowledge that up front. So far, my car is not caught on fire. I will say, bottom line, despite the fact that this recall is a pain in the neck, I really do like my car. I plan to keep it, and Chevrolet says that they are in the process of fixing the batteries and putting in a new battery. When a new battery is put in, I will have even more range because they're putting in a better battery than I had. So I'll just say two more quick things. GM has made a commitment to recycle all batteries, which to me is important from an environmental perspective. And I think they have also committed, General Motors is more than a century old, and Mary Barra, who leads that company, is committed to switch over to electric vehicles by 2035. So it is the wave of the future. They do have an elephant in the room, but I'm confident they'll take care of that elephant. Thank you.
Okay, I know we have some questions coming in the chat and we will get to them. We just have a couple more people to get through. So let's keep going, introducing our EV owners. Luciana.
Hi guys. So I'm Luciana and this is my husband Eric. In fact, this is his car, but as a good wife, I always take his car. So we have been living here in West Hartford since last year, but Eric has been living here
7 or 8 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we bought this car last year. Sorry, no,
2018.
in 2018. What led us to buy this car was because we wanted something cleaner with a cleaner engine.
Mhm.
And we also want something cheaper. And we got the state and federal incentives. So we decided to go for this vehicle. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, I think this was a new brand or new entry into the electric market when we bought it. It's like the equivalent of a Prius. And when I bought this car, we were living in Middletown and I was working in East Hartford, and I could go of the 32-mile trip on back roads up through Glastonbury. I could go all but 1 mile round trip on a single electric charge. In the summertime. In the wintertime, this car doesn't have a battery heater. So you run the AC, you run the heat, you lose some electric range. But I like to drive with the windows down anyway. So I could eke out about 32 miles of full range on a single charge.
And there is a charging station at your company, so it's pretty
Yeah.
convenient.
We never installed the charger. We go right off of the house electricity. For us, we do all of our driving around town on electricity. We do most of our driving to work on electricity. And we have the gas when we need to take a long road trip. It's like a 12-gallon tank. So we get about 600 miles of total range on the car on a single tank of gas.
Mhm.
I think I fill up maybe once a month, once every other month, the gas. And we've gone to and from New Hampshire, full tank of gas, and never had to fill up until we got back home.
Mhm.
Uh,
DC with 1 tank of gas.
Yeah. And I think I've run the numbers on this car. I think when the gas price gets up about $2.95, it's actually cheaper. Even with Connecticut electricity rates, it's cheaper to charge my car at home than it is for me to fill up the gas tank. So it is a little bit of a money savings in that way too, depending upon the price of gas and the price of electricity. So it was a nice little trade-off, and I can fit a lot in the trunk. The back seats fold down flat. It is a hatchback, and I get a lot of lumber from The hardware store fit it in pretty good.
Yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Oh, yeah.
We have one last EV owner, Matt.
Hey, good evening, folks. I love the joint presentation we just heard. I decided to relocate so you wouldn't have a naked 4-year-olds jointly presenting with me because he'd be the only one you hear talking. So I also have a Nissan Leaf like Christine had mentioned earlier. Same model year by coincidence, but mine was purchased new at the time. I was helping run promotion with Nissan North America and Connecticut Green Bank, my employer, to get a bunch of these leased or sold. And I figured at the time, this would be a good showing of confidence because I might as well be demonstrating and walking the talk, so to speak. I originally got a used Nissan Leaf from 2013 back in 2015, back when it was the really early years of electric vehicles, and only the Nissan Leaf and Chevy Volt were the two models that were out there on the road at the time. So really exploring that bleeding edge of range adequacy at the time, which is no longer really a concern, given the battery sizes that you're encountering and given the profusion of chargers that are out there. So just keeping it short on this, I am a solar homeowner, and I think you are about to encounter the 4-year-old. So I have solar on my house, and so the savings that the Grandstrands were just talking about is probably at least double when it comes to what I'm able to do because I make my own power and then I drive on it essentially. And there's also just a cool little feature on these solar on the tail spoiler of the Nissan Leaf helps run all of its auxiliary systems. And so next slide, please, and I can go on to some other things. So I also sit on, I got some data from the Connecticut Hydrogen and Electric Purchase Rebate, or cheaper, from their most recent board meeting. Full disclosure, I'm a member of that board for their new governance committee. And so what you'll see here, it's small text, is that if you see the green, those are the plug-in hybrids, and the blues are the full battery electric vehicles. In the early market, the smart money was, there's going to be a lot more plug-in hybrids for a long time, and that's where the market's going to be as people kind of get introduced to electric vehicles. Turns out that's not where a lot of the activity has been happening. The market has kind of shifted toward leaning heavier on fully electrified vehicles, and that's not including any vehicle that's over $42,000 because that's the MSRP cap for the state rebate. So this isn't including a lot of the Teslas and a lot of the other vehicles that folks are starting or that are getting introduced in the luxury segment when it comes to electric, because that's another part of the appeal of driving electric. Is it's not just saving money, it's not just more efficient, it's actually more fun and it's speedier. And so as a performance drivetrain, you can kind of do more with that. And that's why folks are starting to introduce electric in the luxury segment too. Next slide, thanks for keeping me on track. So here also small text. So I'll just give a quick few highlights. This is from July 1st data. And what you're starting to see here for vehicle types getting introduced just this year, this isn't total cumulative, this is just 2021, is you're starting to see some new ones get introduced. You've got folks like Bernie on the left-hand side with a Chevy Bolt on that bar. There's 133 of those. Hyundai Ioniqs coming in, and also some new introductions of vehicles that just came out in the past year or so, like the Hyundai Kona, the Kia Niro, the all the way on the right, the Volkswagen ID4. Look out for that one. That just came out, and that could be kind of splashy. The Nissan Leaf is in there, and of course, what you're seeing here is also the Priuses and the Teslas on the top bars in terms of those that come in under that cost cap for what you could afford with the state rebate. Next slide. Unless you want to linger on that slide, there's a lot of data there. So going over quick some of the vehicle incentives that are out there for those who are interested in purchasing or leasing an electric vehicle, and whether it's new or used, I'll tell you, I'll differentiate there. So on the federal side, that's always one of the biggest incentives, a non-refundable tax credit of up to $7,500. What non-refundable means is that you have to have the tax appetite in order to make use of that, because you can't reduce it past zero and get a full refund back on your taxes. It just reduces your liability to zero potentially. And so as long as you can make use of that, that's a great tool right there. If you lease a vehicle, you don't necessarily make use of that, or if you don't have a tax appetite, for example, if you're a town making a purchase, right, and you're not taxed, there's other ways that dealerships can do that and help you monetize most of that and then bring that into the price. On the state incentive side, you don't pay a clean air registration fee when you first get the vehicle, because you're not putting out any dirty air with an EV. And so that's a small little inducement, but there are bigger ones. There's a purchase or lease rebate called CHEAPR, Connecticut Hydrogen and Electric Automobile Purchase Rebate, summarized on the right-hand side here, and hopefully the pastel colors aren't blending in too badly. And it's recently reformulated with boosted up rebates, because 2020 was a down year, and so there was extra money left in the budget available to kind of do a temporary stimulus, if you will, sort of kicker incentive on top of what the base incentive would be. So this is a good year to go and get an electric vehicle. There's not a lot of fuel cell EVs out there, but that's got the highest rebate right there, just because number one, it's a tech that they're trying to push, and also it'll cost a little bit higher. But for all battery EVs in the middle there, $22.50 rebate. You can get a used, as of this year, this is the first year you can get used rebates as well. You couldn't do that previously, up to $3,000 off. And a kicker incentive for new ones of up to $2,000 if you're low to moderate income. That's what that means, LMI. It's kind of an equity policy provision that's out there, where you try to get deeper penetration for EV adoption in these populations that don't have a lot of them yet. And then you could get that diffusion effect where more of them spreads out faster. So it's worth doing that right there. It's means tested. In other words, if you're on like a state social services program, something like that, then you can automatically qualify in for that. And plugins are also available. And generally these incentive sizes are scaled to the size of the battery, the size of the range, trying to drive the tech faster. So that's CHEAPR in a nutshell. And then the last bullet, manufacturer and dealership promotions, opportunistic if they come out there. When I was running a campaign with the Leaf, they were offering, I think it was up to 4,000, maybe 5,000 one year off of their MSRP price. And some of them will condition that on if you go through their own financing house, right, for that auto manufacturer, then they'll give you a discount, because then they can make interest income off of it, right? So it becomes a good deal for both sides on that account. And then what I don't mention here is something that I think it was the grandstands that were mentioning it, was the operational and maintenance savings that you can get just from driving EVs. So it's not necessarily an explicit vehicle incentive, it's just a benefit where you could save money on fewer oil changes, less maintenance, 1/3 of the moving parts, etc. So great deal for an electric vehicle if the use case is right for you. Next slide. Even smaller text. So on the electric vehicle charging station side, like one of the previous speakers, I think it was Max, who never got a charger for his house. I just plug mine right into the wall and it works just fine. And I charge it overnight. But if you want to have the option to refill your vehicle faster so that you could take a longer trip sooner, then it's a great idea to install a charging station. And the state utilities and their regulator had just recently approved, starting in 2022, a new big incentive program that'll last for the next 9 years. It'll get renewed every year. for trying to help the state meet its policy targets for getting electric vehicles on the road. You saw that growth curve earlier for EVs. It actually needs to be way steeper in the coming years in order to meet state policy targets. And so it's a good idea to have enough charging to supply them. So there's a large scale program here for residential, single family, multifamily. DCFC is DC direct current fast charging. That's tends to be the public fast chargers. It's like touching a power line right to your car. Destination charging, think like restaurants, movie theaters, that sort of thing. And workplace charging, which could also include like back of the fence, like behind the fence fleet charging, right, for businesses, but also employees at workplaces. If there's a charging station at your workplace, there's a lot more people that are going to start getting EVs because it's functionally probably doubles your range right there if for where you go during the course of the day. So what you can kind of expect here, I guess I'll focus on the residential side, is up to $500 rebate. And a lot of EV charging stations are $400 to $800 to begin with. And then a little kicker on top of that, if you need electrical upgrades like a new breaker box, more amperage, stuff like that, then you can get, and this is, I think, to be determined imminently, as far as what that extra little bit is concerned, but it'll probably be a few $100s available to you to kick in for an electrical upgrade. And then if there happens to be, and this is more like in the commercial sector right here, in the public charging sector, if you need to do drilling, trenching, boring, stuff like that to go through asphalt to install a pedestal charger or something like that, then the utilities will cover all that cost. These guys are the fuel purveyors, right? They sell electricity. And so there's something in it for them at the same time to be providing this and to be accelerating electric vehicle adoption, right? And so getting more charging out there faster, making it ubiquitous so you see it as often as gas stations. Even if you rarely need it, because most charging happens at home and a little bit at the workplace, just seeing it is a sort of comfort factor for a lot of drivers, knowing that that's there as a backup. So great set of policies here. I've been watching this on the cooker for years now, and I'm really glad that it got passed through to get this started. So happy to take further questions on that. I won't linger too long. I think that's my last slide.
That is your last slide.
Okay.
Great. So thank you guys very much. We've heard from 5 residents. I'm just going to go through. We've heard from 2 plugins. We have Max's Volvo and Luciana's Hyundai. And then we heard from 3 owners of battery electric vehicles, Christine and Matt's Nissan Leafs and Bernie's Chevy Bolt. Just to refresh your memory, here are the cars and there are incentive things. So now, we'll share that later. So now we're just going to open up the floor to questions. I know that we have several in the chat, so I'm going to go back there. The first one was, I think while Christine was talking, and it said, what do you do while you charge on the road and how long does it take? And that's kind of a practical question. So yeah, when you guys are, how do you kind of coordinate that charging on the road, Christine?
Well, when we did our trip to New Jersey, I did a couple of things. We stopped in Stamford and we got plugged into at the town hall, and we found on our Google Maps that there was a Dunkin' Donuts nearby. That's where my grandson wanted to go to get something to eat. So it was close for us to walk. So we walked up to Dunkin' Donuts, got donut holes and soda or whatever. And I had a sandwich in the car for him already. And we walked back and we just waited for a little while longer. He listened to music. We were able to find a place to plug in our other devices. When we stopped in, a lot of people do stop for something to eat. When we stopped in New Jersey coming back, we talked to some guys. Now there were some issues there there were 6 chargers at a mall, and some of them were out of service, and that can be an issue. But one of the guys who stopped said that he usually, when he charges there, he on his way between DC and New England, he plugs in and goes to the food mall. So he kind of, I mean, I think that's one of the things that people do is they sort of time something like that to the time that they are going to be there. When we charged in Montclair, I have a sister-in-law and nieces there. So the nieces took us over, led us over there, and then we went back and visited with them, and then we went back and got the car. So you do, there's a certain amount of getting creative with what you do while you're charging. But the charger in Montclair was actually very fast. We were visiting with our nieces for much longer than was needed. But anyway, that's what we did.
Great. Okay, our next question is from Linda, and she wants to know, are charging stations universal? So can you plug Teslas and Volvos into the same station? Max, do you want to answer that, or Bernie, or?
Yeah, I'll say
Well,
that for somebody like
yeah.
the real EV.
I would say, I mean, Teslas are different. So Tesla charging stations are completely different. If you don't have a Tesla, you don't stop there. The other ones, like the one, like Hermione and the ones like her, like that, she had 3 connections. So there are different kinds. And that's one other thing that happened to us. We stopped at a place we thought they had the charger for ours and it didn't. So we had to keep going. So those were three different types. I don't know for sure exactly how it breaks down between the other types of cars as to how they charge. You might know, someone else might know, like what the other 2 are like, or how the cars kind of split up into what they need.
Christine, I'll take a crack at that. So Catherine has the slide on my car charging. So that white charger there is a level 2 charger. And Christine, your Leaf and Matt Masunis's Leaf can charge off of that. I think every car can charge off of that, including a Tesla. It's when you go to the DC fast charging, which like Matt said, is plugging your car into a power line. There are 3 different modes of charging. So you see a picture of my charger, which is the CCS combo fast charging. Tesla has its own, and I think Christine and Matt, you have what's called CHAdeMO.
CHAdeMO, yeah.
CHAdeMO. So it's really when you get to level 3 that there's a different kind of station. And like your Hermione station, the one that you charged at in Stamford, I think, my guess is that it's a DC fast charge, and it could charge my car on one side and your car on the other side. So that's
okay. The Hermione was actually a commercial one. Those were the ones in Stamford. And thank you for correcting me when I meant the fast chargers are all the 6 units that were in the mall in New Jersey. The Tesla's chargers were across one of the other, across the way. Let me put it that way. So, it's kind of it's sort of a mixed bag in a sense, in that when you go to commercial, they are really different. And there were 3 different connectors. 2 of the connectors in Montclair would not fit on our car, but the 3rd one was the CHAdeMO. And maybe it was just the level 3 that was the reason.
Gotcha. I just want to remind people that if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand, or you can put it in the chat. So we're moving along. Carlene wants to know, how low do you allow the charge to go before you recharge? She says her husband loves to wait until empty with the gas, but she said that's probably not smart with an EV. Who wants to take that one?
Well, on the plug-in hybrid, we go to 0 if so. We drive it till it runs out, and then the engine kicks in.
Yeah, that's what Max said is one of the big attractions of a plug-in hybrid is it automatically switches, so you have 0 range anxiety. I think this is a personality thing, so I'm kind of a nervous guy at heart, so I like to keep more than enough miles in the battery to make it to the next charger. And So as chargers become more and more prevalent, like Matt Masunas was showing, I think my range anxiety will go down, but I don't like to go below, say, 60 miles.
Oh, wow, Ernie,
I
you
know you
really
live
are.
on the edge, Christine.
Well, I mean, we don't have that much, we don't have a lot of range, so we generally try to I like to have 25 miles estimated left on the screen. That doesn't always work out. The very last bit of both going to Long Beach Island and coming back got a little tense going down. Well, I had mapped to Long Beach Island, but then you get onto the island and we turn right to get to where we're going. And then it was another 5 or 6 miles, which I didn't really realize. Maybe I hadn't mapped to the exact address. Anyway, at 19 miles, it stopped telling me how many miles it had left. And
Is
so
it like a gas tank where there's like a little fudge factor at the end? They tell you you're empty, but you still have a little bit to go.
That's basically what happened at 19 miles ago. It stopped changing and the light came on. It said, you should stop to charge. It's like, I know, but it's 9:30 at night and I've been on the road for a long time and I don't even know where to stop. So, but if you go more slowly, I can really eke out a lot of miles on this car. And so you go more slowly, the miles, miles per hour, the speed limit there was 35 miles an hour down that Long Beach Boulevard. And I was going about 25 and I still had 19 miles estimated when we got there, but when Kevin plugged it in the next morning, it had 14, which is still, I mean, 14 miles is 14 miles. Somehow it showed up when he plugged it into the charger that was, and he had to drive several miles to get there. So I guess I did eke out a lot of miles there. But one thing I would say that if you drive more, if you don't drive as fast, you get a lot more miles. So when I'm driving down to the East Hampton, Glastonbury area, I typically go 55 on the highway instead of 65, and the estimated miles you can go differs dramatically if you go 55 versus 65, and you can get a lot of miles out of going. 55 is really pretty good. I mean, I can get a lot of miles out of it going just 55 miles per hour. So there are ways to drive efficiently. And one nice thing about these cars, and I know that the plug-in hybrids, I think, are the same. I'm pretty sure, I know the Prius is the same. It does tell you your estimated mileage. So if you slow down by 5 miles per hour, especially if you're not going a long way and you can tolerate that with your time frame, you really get much better efficiency out of your battery power.
Yeah. We have another question. Is there an app for finding charging locations? Luciana or anyone?
Yeah, there is. I think it's the ChargePoint app. I think there's a couple more maybe, but we've used that one on trips up to Boston.
Charge Hub.
Yeah, there's a few, but we used ChargePoint when we went up to Boston, and you pay $5 to park and you get free electricity in the city of Boston. So
Which is great.
if you get parking in Boston, it's like $20 or $30 for the day, and you can go park for $5 and get free electricity.
Not free.
No, they didn't have to pay for electricity.
Yeah.
But it's pretty nice. Some cities are doing a lot of things like that.
That was actually another question, so maybe someone else can chime in as well. Someone was asking, is there a cost? What kind of is the commercial cost to charge? So I think they mean like when there's a charging station that's not free. I hope I'm interpreting this question correctly. If there's a charging station where the electricity is not free, like how much does it cost? Anyone want to answer that?
Catherine, I'll take a crack at it. I'm holding, like Luciana said, I use ChargePoint. You probably can't see these, and I use EVgo. What you want to do is just go on ChargePoint or EVgo or Charge Hub or any of these things. But these services, ChargePoint and EVgo, you can see the chargers, so you can map out your route. You can see where the chargers are, and you can see the cost per kilowatt hour. So the DC fast chargers do charge like 31 cents a kilowatt hour, which is more than we pay at home, but that's because they're feeding it to you so fast. And so I've only used DC fast charging a few times, but I really am willing to pay 31 cents a kilowatt hour because I can get it over with in 40 minutes or an hour and I can be on my way.
Matt has put a link to one of the resources he uses called plugshare.com for finding charging. That's the one that Matt recommends as well. It's in the chat.
A lot of the ones I heard were kind of the proprietary ones that are specific to charger types, but that's kind of like user content. Like anyone can just mark, oh, I see a charger over there, and here's its status, and it's up or down, and here's the last time it was maintained. Really cool. It's almost like the social media of finding chargers because everyone contributes to it, in addition to the site hosts.
Okay, you can see
I'll
whether
check out ChargeHub.
whether it's in use, so it'll show green or blue. If it's open, it'll be green. If somebody's using it, it'll be blue. So you kind of know before you get there.
I'm going to jump around in the questions a little bit. Someone has asked, if you charge at the West Hartford parking lots, do you have to pay to park?
No.
And the answer is yes, you're supposed to pay to park. So in the municipal lots, if the parking is paid parking, then yes, they expect you to pay for the parking. But the electricity from the chargers is currently free for the
We
ones
haven't
that,
had, but.
for
but
the
you
ones
can-
that the town owns.
You get into the town hall lot without paying anything.
For right now, yes, yes. If
okay.
there is paid parking, you're supposed to pay the parking fee.
Yeah. What about the one at Charter Oak School? Is that one? I don't think that's a paid
There is
parking.
no paid parking there.
Yeah.
So that is a free charging station. Yes, that is a municipal owned station at Charter Oak School down near the Home Depot. Someone else is asking, sorry. Can you discuss how heating or defrosting of the windshield in cold months affects battery range? I think Luciana and Eric touched on this, but maybe someone else has experience with that as well.
I think it's universally true that when you're running the heater, it's like running kind of a electric hair dryer almost. So it eats up mileage. Same with the windshield defogger. So in my car, I have heated seats and I have a heated steering wheel, and which I would never get, but it's like I try in the winter, I try not to run the heat as much as possible just to preserve the range.
I'm seeing lots of thank yous in the chat for a great presentation. So thank you guys for that. So Patrick is asking, is there crash test data on these types of cars? Are they just as safe as regular cars? Max, did you do any research on that before you bought yours?
No, we didn't. Although with the Volvo, I've always felt pretty comfortable about them in terms of overall automotive safety. I mean, I know, and any of them have to meet the same safety standards.
It should be, I think they're better in frontal collisions because you don't have to worry about the engine collapsing in on you. They're designed pretty good. I mean, they have all the same types of crumple zones you get on regular cars. It's a regular car chassis. It's just underneath the bottom, they put a huge battery pack in and you remove the motor.
Yeah, a lot of the EVs, it's almost like a skateboard of batteries on bottom, and that adds a little more weight than the average car. And so it's got a lower center of gravity. And so you're probably less likely to do rollovers, for example.
And then a follow-on question is it dangerous to plug in while it's raining or snowing?
I'll take this. When I go to work and I plug in there, people are plugged in all the time in the rain or snow. So I haven't really heard any stories of that, and I don't see anyone getting too nervous about plugging in. I leave my car outside my garage and charge overnight, whether it's raining or not. So.
I'm with you, Luciana. That's exactly how I am. I don't think that's a concern.
Okay, Sarah would like to know, do any of you know whether AAA is offering recharging similar to delivering gasoline or jump-starting your car? Anyone have any experience with that?
AAA. They're starting to do that now. They've got portable battery units.
They do. So then maybe
Range
someone
anxiety.
else was saying range anxiety was a new word for them. So maybe that'll alleviate some people's range anxiety if they can get bailed out by AAA. Let's see what else we've got. Guys, feel free to, oh, we have someone with their hand up. Carlene.
I had
for
a
it.
question for Matt. I was very excited about the rebates coming next year, potentially. But the EVSE was also a new term for me. And I know that Bernie was talking, so thanks Bernie for the differences. But is a level 2 the same thing as a fast charger? I'm just curious as what I actually have an EV. I have a 2018 Nissan Leaf, which I love, but I just plug it in to my wall unit. But what is the benefit of a EVSE, I guess, over just a wall unit? I guess I'm asking, but I don't. Sounds
You asked
good.
2 questions, and I'm happy
Okay.
to answer both. So EVSE, sorry about that. That's like the industry term for electric vehicle service equipment. Technically, a charger is actually on board the vehicle and not outside the vehicle, which is why they call it electric vehicle service equipment. Everyone in the real world here just calls them chargers, right? Because that's just easier to think of. Is there an advantage over, yeah, and someone else might ask that too. Just plugging it into the wall or getting an actual charging unit. It depends on the type of plug you have outside your wall. I saw a 240 volt. Yeah, that tends to be a level 2 charger. Oh, by the way, EVSE is all types. So the level 1 charger is like a normal wall outlet, 110 volt. And that's what I plug into. A 240 volt is like a dryer or oven outlet. And some people have those on the sides of their house, some folks, or in the garage, some folks don't. There are charger units you could buy that are directly wired into the side of your house for that level of voltage, or that could simply plug into the plug right there. And there's not so much advantage of the charger unit itself unless it's got some frills that are important to you. For example, if you're on if you want to do some form of smart charging where it's more automated toward time of day and coinciding with electric rates, if you got like time of day electric rates, for example, there are ways to set that within the car itself too. And so it depends. A part, I think, of what's going to be coming out of the state rebate is for smart charging, allowing for some sort of grid, power grid interactiveness. And it might be tough for me to dumb this down on the fly, and no offense at the term. It's just, it's especially wonky. Being able to react to, let's say, those 10 hottest days of the year when everyone's running their air conditioners and they need more power on the grid so that the costs aren't distributed to everybody of turning on new power plants. Okay, what could we do? Well, let's throttle back the rate of charge for the next 15 minutes on 2,000 people in various different technologies, right? They wouldn't do that necessarily unless you sign up for it, and maybe you'll get a kicker incentive for that. So we're going to see what that looks like starting 2022. I think that's the last part of the program to be designed, but you don't necessarily need to have that. And like you heard from a few of us, you can just plug into the side of the house if it suits you.
So this one here, this first one, residential single family level 2, it doesn't sound like you really even need it, right? Okay. It doesn't sound like an advantage of any kind.
It's much faster.
Fast.
Is that
Much
faster?
Much
Because
faster.
It is
Okay.
much faster than trickle charging from a level 1. Remember, level 2 is still the equivalent of having like an oven outlet versus a hair dryer outlet.
Okay,
So there is a
okay.
lot more power going to it faster.
You know
So,
what? I think that same husband of mine probably did do a level 2 because I have a dryer-like thing.
Oh, then,
and
if you have-
so, Jim
Yeah.
daughter also has his hand up and I think had a
Yes.
question along the same lines. I think
Yes.
where we're coming in is the 240 volt outlet is very similar to the level 2
Yep.
charger that Bernie has installed in his home, this one here.
Right. That is exactly. I just and thank you for the territory you've already covered on the question. But a remaining question I have: is it possible that the major advantage to having the dedicated charger, the special charger, as opposed to the thing that just comes in your car, and we do have an all-electric vehicle, that the advantage would be one of safety in rain and snow, because otherwise you'd be dealing with it, just a normal plug, like a household plug outlet in the rain and the snow. Or is there something else?
Bernie, did you have something from before?
I do think that that's possible. I think if you're just taking a 240 plug, it's a bigger plug, like maybe has 3 slots instead of 2, but it doesn't have any cowling around it. So if it is raining, I suppose some water could get on it. But whereas my level 2 does, it's sort of got like a little cup around it. So when you plug it in, nothing really gets on the terminals. But I'm just guessing. I kind of think they're kind of equivalent. But I'm happy to have my
Bernie.
charger.
Bernie, your charger is inside your garage, right?
My charger is
Oh.
inside my garage, and I probably have a 20-foot cable, so I can charge. Like the other day, my neighbor, they have a Nissan Leaf. They live up in Northampton. My neighbor's son, he came over, and I just he just stayed out in the driveway, and I plugged him in. So yes, it's in my garage, and I have about a 20-foot cable.
Cable length is something to not ignore. If it's like 12, 17, 20, 24, like that's a big difference, depending on what your setup is.
So I have one more question from the chat, and then I see Robbie has his hand up. Deborah wants to know, is there any reason, and I assume this might be a safety, why I should not charge my car in a closed garage?
Like a garage with a door down in a residential unit? No, totally fine. The electrical fire is the same risk as a.
Sorry, there was answered. Yeah, I mean, not definitively.
Then why does he still have a charger?
Yeah, and I don't think there are, I think that maybe that question was related to any kind of noxious emissions or something, but there's nothing like that.
No, there's no fumes. You're not gonna end your life by turning on the car and sitting in an electric vehicle while it's charging. It's in a closed garage. There's no fumes whatsoever.
And that's one benefit again of driving electric is you could idle in perpetuity, like forever, compared to a normal vehicle, and you're not emitting anything. And in some cases, you could just. I have the solar panel on my spoiler. I could keep on just having the AC on and playing music if I wanted, and being on a conference call, and it's not depleting from the traction battery. So you could idle for longer periods of time without emissions.
We usually charge in our garage with the garage door down, just as an example.
Oh, I see that Rabbi Sandberg has his hand up.
You want to
Sure,
unmute yourself?
give me some, excuse me, could you give me some idea of the types of maintenance you have to do for hybrid and for electric vehicles, and the cost approximate, in your experience, either for Bernie or Matt, these questions?
I'll jump on that and then turn it to Matt. I'm really glad you asked that question because when I left the Chevrolet dealer, I had a choice between a Volt, which is a hybrid, and the Bolt, which is a battery. And I said, I picked the battery electric because I was standing in front of the emissions desk at O'Neill Chevrolet, and I said, oh, if I get this car, I'll never have to come in for emissions. And then it was kind of comical. For the year after I got the car, they kept sending me, come on in for your oil change. Well, I don't need an oil change. Come in for your tune-up. Well, I don't need a tune-up. Come in to have your brakes checked. I want to say one of the unique things, and I think it's common to all the electric cars, is when you brake, you hardly use your brakes. You basically just let the battery take the energy back from the forward motion of the car and put it back in the battery. So I only use my brakes when if it's an emergency or if I'm going backwards, like down my driveway. So very little in the way of maintenance. I think tires, you're going to have to replace now and again. There is a 12-volt battery that has to be replaced, just like every car has a 12-volt battery, I think. So very, very low annual maintenance is one of the big attractions to me of the battery electric.
Yeah, I always like to joke, you rotate the tires and you get new windshield wipers. It's a joke by comparison what the maintenance regime is on an electric compared to normal. I'm more interested in hearing from someone like Max who has a hybrid. And it's got 2 drivetrains, right? So like what does that look like?
Yeah, so the Volvo is new, so I don't have any experience there. We had the hybrid Highlander for several years, and it's like a normal car. You don't get out of any maintenance. And the one issue we had is there's multiple different batteries in it. And one of them in the Highlander is a small 12-volt battery in the trunk that powers a lot of the electrical systems. It's separated. When that died, that was a hassle because you can't open the trunk if the battery doesn't work. So the Toyota dealer had a lot of 4-letter words for that too. It's not an expensive thing to replace. It's a small battery. But part of why we traded that in is we've heard that after 100,000 miles or so, at some point the hybrid battery pack starts to decline and can be expensive to replace.
I can comment on our car. I do all my own oil changes and mechanical work. So it's like owning a standard car for a plug-in hybrid. I may go a little bit longer without changing oil just because I'm using electricity for about 60-70% of my driving. But the oil does go bad over time. I usually just put in some of the more extended range oil, but it's the same maintenance for a plug-in as you would have for a normal car. All the oil and fluids.
Okay, one question we have in the chat from Barbara is she's thinking of getting a new Nissan Ariya when it comes out in 2022. Since this is a brand new model, is that more concerning than going with one that's been in the market for a while?
I think it's less concerning. It's and maybe I'm wrong about that, but it's a usual concern of when do I jump in the market with new tech, right? Because it's going to advance faster than old tech. And so like, when should I get solar power on my house? What if I wait a few years? Will the solar be better? Better to do it in the present because you can start saving money in the present. When it comes to something like that, all the automakers have been pumping billions of dollars into research and development for bigger batteries, better performance that's jumping ahead faster, I think, than traditional vehicles in terms of what new efficiencies they can come up with because it's newer tech, right? The Ariya is interesting because the Leaf, which is also Nissan, it's got that traditionally, it's like the Asian markets form factor for fast charging, which is what Bernie mentioned, the CHAdeMO level 3 fast charger, which is on the decline, I'd say, in the States, with the CCS combo being the more widely adopted one in North America. The Nissan Ariya is moving over to that. And so when it comes to that vehicle, you can actually find more fast chargers around. And I think that's a great move on Nissan's part right there.
We have a hand raised by Pat's iPhone. Pat, do you want to unmute yourself? Or was that a mistake?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, and the talk going around about level 1 and level 2, what approximately is the cost of the electricity used?
It's just standard.
Bernie, I knew Bernie would jump in on that. Go for it.
Yeah, so if you're in Eversource territory, you're paying about 22.4 cents a kilowatt hour. And so if we're charging at home, that's what we're paying. It's really only when you go to a commercial charger on the road that you'll pay a different price than that.
How much is like,
The size of your battery and how many miles you drive is the rest of the math then. So Bernie, what would you say for like a fill up or like a week or a month or something like that?
Yeah, so if I charge my car at 60 so if I charge it from 0, which I never let it go to 60 kilowatt hours, which is full, at 20, let's call it 20 cents to make it. That's $12 to fill it up, and I can go about 240 miles on that $12.
And so, Pat, to answer your question, the cost is the same to fill up Bernie's car, whether it's a level 1 or a level 2 charger. It just takes way longer to do it on the level 1 charger. The cost is the same, it just takes longer.
okay,
Does that make sense?
it does.
And where you're
Thank
going
you.
to encounter an extra fee on top of that, past what you would really pay for electricity, is on the level 3 fast chargers. You might encounter most of those on like the I-95 corridor, some on 91, and a few in some other places. Just one up the road, like the Cumberland Farms on New Park. They've got an EVgo fast charger. You pay for the convenience right there, and sometimes it'll be like by the minute rather than metered by electricity. And it's still cheaper, even on one of those, than filling up a car with gasoline. Tends to be.
I'll make a comment. Barbara, you asked about why would somebody put in a charger like I did versus just put in a 240 plug. I Googled that, and you can see a link down there. It's the www Inside EV Forum. I think it's more like convenience, that you are going to need some sort of something to plug into the 240. And so if you want to, and what they say is basically you can do what I did where it stays with the house, or you can put in a 240 and have like a portable charger that you could take with you. So it's, I guess I would just say read that little post, and that'll give you some insight.
Yeah, or like aesthetics, or maybe it looks nice to have one installed on the wall, or like a cord management system where it's retractable or something like that.
That was, I think Elizabeth Curry had that same question. So maybe Elizabeth can view that link as well.
I'm
And
sorry.
we'll save the chat. Indira wants to know if any of our panelists have heard about the ID4 and are excited about it. Anybody opinions?
I was teasing on my excitement for it during the bar chart slide. I think it said maybe 14 acquired so far as of July in Connecticut because it's so new. But the Volkswagen's got a whole line of exciting cars for the coming years that are coming out. And I think might be the first one that they're putting out past the e-Golf. So the next generation of EVs that VW is putting out. I'm excited to watch that one in action. Their marketing campaigns are pretty slick so far.
I'd also add too that there's a lot of car manufacturers are coming out with cars in the ID4 range. Hyundai's got the Ioniq 5 coming out, which has got me real excited. Ford's got their Mustang Mach-E that's come out, all trying to compete with the Model Y.
A-Truck.
Yeah. And one thing I thought I would add, Matt, when you talked about the incentives from Connecticut. Unlike the tax incentives for the federal one where you get it back on your tax return, the Connecticut tax incentive can be applied at the dealership directly to the price of the car. So you can take that off the price of your car right when you purchase it, and you don't have to wait for that money or adjust your tax withholding with your job. So that's
That's
nice.
an awesome point. Yeah, it's cash on the hood.
Passion of it.
So I have one question. Maybe each of you can answer. When you guys, excuse me, when you guys bought your EVs, were you already in the market for a new vehicle? Like your old car was ready for replacement? Or did you guys make a conscious decision to replace a perfectly good car and kind of upgrade to an EV? Maybe we just go round and answer that.
For us, there's a little of column A and a little of column B. I think we would be replacing the previous one within the year or so, and the vehicle we wanted was available.
We didn't replace our car. We still have a gas powered car that we hardly use, but we can use it for longer. I mean, that's one of the reasons that we could get an electric car that had a shorter range. We do almost all of our driving because it is mostly around town or not any farther than some of the places that we've been in Connecticut. But we made a conscious decision to replace our gas use around town with electric use. That was basically what it came down to.
Yeah, my story is kind of a sad story. I had a Volkswagen TDI, which was a diesel. I had bought that in 2015, and I have to confess, even though it's a diesel and I'm a clean energy person, I absolutely loved that car. But I don't know if everybody knows what the Dieselgate scandal was, but they actually intentionally jimmied the emissions testing on that. And so I was so furious that I sold the car, and I was then more or less, it's sort of like on the rebound. I was not going to go back to any diesels or any gas. So I was either going to go plug-in hybrid or battery electric, and I went battery electric.
And I think you're all getting the sense that whatever car Bernie buys, don't buy it.
I still love this car.
You're having bad luck with
I
cars.
am.
Okay.
Okay, so for
Yeah.
us, I think was a little bit of both. We want to have like a cleaner engine, and also Eric was kind of tired of drive a sports car.
Yeah, I was spending, I think, around $400 a month on gas alone for my car. And I cut that down to maybe, yeah, probably closer to like $40 a month. So a lot of it was cost driven, but also I like the idea of going electric. Someone was asking about their eye out on the Mach-E, and I have my eye out on 2028 when I can get a real Mustang electric. That's where my mind's going, but.
With me, it was both me and my wife's cars were dying around the same time. They had 10 years on them. I had a Pontiac Grand Prix at the time. And no other, as I was thinking about new cars, nothing really excited me until it occurred to me, oh, there's this whole class of electric cars. And that I used to be enthused to hear that these even existed. So that got me excited. And actually, it was an economic choice at the same time, because it was a used Nissan Leaf for 10K that I got. And so, my wife is pretty savvy. She's jockeying around the idea of, hey, maybe we could sell this other, our Subaru here, and pick up a lease on a Tesla Model Y. And she knew which car type to drop for me to be like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe, yeah. So yeah, for both the past purchase and future purchases here on out, I think it's going to be EVs.
And we did have that question in the chat. Does anyone know any inside scoop on the Ford E. And Matt, does that fit into the kind of luxury class, or would that qualify for incentives too?
Well, great question, because I forget what the MSRP is on that. It might be on the cusp, right? Like if you get a higher trim level, then it'll be outside the incentive, but the base level, someone could look that up on the fly and might be able to find that out, but I don't recall.
It
The
is
same-
just above the limit.
Eric says it's just above the limit. And the same person, Mr. Samsung here, is asking any advice on leasing versus buying as a bridge to the next generation EVs.
Most of the
Any-
market likes to lease in normal cars. It's probably 2/3, 3/4 leases, and that's even stronger when it comes to EVs, probably 80%. And because the tech is moving, right? I bought mine as a show of confidence, but that's not where a lot of the market is generally for EVs or generally for all cars. A lot of them lease.
So
I
then,
was gonna say something I talked over you. I apologize.
so then Matt, will there be, if a lot of people are leasing, same thing, there'll be a lot of kind of 3-year-old EVs out there that you
Which is a
could,
great thing. Exactly.
and now you can get incentives for them, right?
And now you can get incentives for used EVs. Exactly.
Catherine, one thing we ought to mention too is the driving experience itself.
Yes.
So like Matt Masunas, my wife has a Subaru Forester, which is a great car, but I hate to drive it now because my car is the fastest car I've ever owned. You can accelerate really so smoothly. It pushes you back in the seat. It makes virtually no noise. The one pedal driving, which means that you don't really have to use the brakes hardly ever. It's just a different and, to me, much better driving experience. And I think that's kind of universally true on the battery electrics. I think with the Leafs too, but I don't like to drive a gas car anymore.
Yeah, driving around town in actually my wife's car, the Subaru Forester, it seems like overkill. Like if I'm going in between stoplights and you've got this slug of gasoline going to an engine and you suddenly need to stop, like it seems like overkill unless you need to do 90 on the highway for 2 hours at a time, right? For almost all forms of driving I do, it's just a smoother and better experience going EVs.
It's interesting with the plug-in hybrid. So I can switch it out of hybrid mode and into pure electric mode if I'm driving around town to force it to not to kick in the engine. And when it does that, it'll kind of moderate some of the other electrical systems to try and get more battery power out of it. But what we found is like when we go, up 44 over the mountain, it struggles on the smaller battery, right? It's not a full battery electric. And so at that point, we put it back into hybrid mode and turn on the gasoline. But otherwise, when I'm driving around town on battery, it's wonderful, it's smooth. And when I run out of battery and I'm driving around town on gas, I have the same experience as you, Matt. It feels strange and like too much.
Okay. Well, I think we've covered most of the questions. Anyone have anything else they want to share or say, or, participants, please feel free to take yourself off mute and ask another question.
I'll ask a question. Maybe this is for Matt. When you're thinking about buying charging equipment, it seems like you can go get it at Home Depot, or you can order from a specialty, website, or maybe you can buy it through your electrician. Do you have any advice if somebody is wanting to put a charger on about, the best way to go about that, and especially to make sure they can take advantage of those rebates next year?
You ended with a question that stumps me because I actually don't. And I feel like I've been talking too much anyway. It's an awesome question. I don't know if anyone else has experiences with it, but there's going to be a variety of places to source the hardware from, and you'll just need to pick up the electrician.
I think this issue of getting chargers and proper circuitry in your garage and other places is going to just continue, there's going to be more and more options. And actually, Matt, you touched on an option that is in the future yet. It's in reality in Japan already, but people talk about having home batteries to keep the electricity on when the power grid goes down. And so you can buy a Tesla Powerwall or a Sonnen battery, and that might have 10 kilowatt hours of energy in it. But if you think about my battery, which is 60 kilowatt hours, that's like 6 Tesla Powerwalls. And so where you're going with that is if it was bi-directional and there's no electrical reason why it can't be, it could feed a good part of your house. So as we look ahead, I think right now we're talking about charging from the house to the car, but in the future, I think it will be the case that we'll charge both ways.
I'll bite on that. That's a marketing component for what Ford is doing with the F-150. Since they're making the F-150 electric, they're marketing as a feature of that you could backfeed from the car battery back out, whether it's to the work site or to the house in the event the power grid goes down. You probably have to have the right sort of switch gear in place so that you don't backfeed to the street and, you know, worry the electrical workers who are trying to fix stuff. But that is going to be a part of where the market moves, is making use of the fact that there's going to be, assuming the EV market grows as it should, because all the automakers are dumping all their money into it and putting their chips there for the coming decade, you're going to have millions of batteries moving around. And that's a lot of assets that could be working to the good.
I'll throw one factoid out there. It's not about battery cars per se, but I don't think many people understand that when you burn 1 gallon of gasoline, which weighs about 7 pounds, that because when you burn something, it actually combines with oxygen and it gets heavier. So every gallon of gasoline that we burn produces 20 pounds of carbon dioxide. That's a hard thing to wrap your head around if you're not a chemistry major, but it is true. And that means if you burn, like my wife's Subaru Forester, if she fills up and goes through 15 gallons, that's 300 pounds of carbon dioxide. And that's a big reason I think that we want to go electric as much as possible. And I think the plug-in hybrids are really a great transition to get most of your miles, which is the important thing, you know, onto electric.
Well, that's a good environmental point, Bernie, because normal cars get less clean over time as their emissions filtering systems degrade and their catalytic converters stop working quite as well. And electric cars get cleaner over time because the power grid is getting cleaner over time with all the solar and offshore wind and everything like that coming in.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I see people are kind of filtering their way out. I wanted to just share one additional thing for people. I have one more slide at the end here, which I just added before this presentation. I did say National Drive Electric Week was last week. So there were a multitude of events and EV shows and things around the state last week. And I hope some people caught those. But for anyone who's interested, Ridgefield, which is about an hour away from West Hartford, if you guys know where it is having an EV car show on the 17th at Nod Hill Brewery. So I just thought I'd flash that up there for people in case you're interested in checking that out and maybe seeing some EVs. Any closing remarks from people? It's 7:55. I don't see any more questions in the chat. But if any of our panelists want to say some closing remarks before we end, that would be great.
I just want to say I'm really excited and thrilled that people are interested, and everyone had such great questions, and I hope you'll all go out and buy an EV, and I think you'll really like it.
I agree with Christine. I think that was perfectly said. If you're going to buy a car, by all means, at least try an electric or a plug-in out. I won't ever buy another pure gas car, that's for sure, or a diesel.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you all for coming tonight. And a lot of people are saying they have an EVs and they love it. And a lot of people in the chat are thanking our panelists. So I want to thank you all too. And I want to thank Maura and West Hartford Libraries for hosting us tonight. This webinar was recorded. So we'll send people a link to that and some other educational resources and links to the incentive information that Matt put up there. Great. Well, thank you for coming and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.